there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. That is Matt Verderame. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. How is Chiefs Nation after the Bengals defeat?
I would say most Chiefs fans, it's like a 5-alarm fire. That's just kind of the way it goes. I think the Bengals being their big brother at this point has really gotten in a lot of people's heads in Kansas City.
Do you believe it?
I mean, it's certainly gotten in the fan base's head. I think it's a combination of two things. Like they do not play well against the Bengals. I mean, they've taken a ton of penalties. They turn the ball over. I don't think they're in their head. I just think the Chiefs make a lot of mistakes every week. They just are more talented than most teams, so they win anyway.
Right.
Like they've played 12 games this year. They've turned the ball over in at least 10 of them. I mean, they turn the ball over constantly. They take penalties. They special teams have been a mess this year, which is actually weird. Normally they're not, but I think it's a combination of the Chiefs do not play sound football a lot of the time, and the Bengals have a lot of confidence against the Chiefs because they feel like they're going to beat them every time they play them. So when you get in those moments, the Bengals, they find a way. You look at the Travis Kelce fumble, right? I mean, the Chiefs are moving down the field. They score there. They're up 11 points in the fourth quarter. The game's probably over. And Kelce, who never fumbles the ball, fumbles. Like it's just one of those things. So I don't think it's necessarily like schematic. I just think it's one of these deals where the Chiefs just find ways to keep teams in games, and the Bengals are good enough to take advantage of it.
Yeah. And they're dangerous enough that they can beat anybody. That's the thing about the Bengals. They're just dangerous enough. Can I ask you something? Because I got into it with one of the columnists today because I disagree with it, but I'd like to know what you think. Is winning attributed, or would you attribute winning as a stat to a quarterback? I look at life without Marino for 20 years.
Right.
And and then I look at life with Marino, and then I look at Tua, and I say, no quarterback would have been 9-4 the last 20 years that I've been here, except that guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I've had this conversation with a lot of people. I think there's shades of gray with this. So I would say that I think certain quarterbacks, they're winners. Like if they went to another place, they would win because they're great players. Look at Brady, right?
Belichick without him.
That team, without Belichick, sure, but take even Belichick out of this for a second. That franchise sucked by and large for 40 years, and Brady gets there and they win 1 million rings, and Brady leaves and they can't win a playoff game, and he goes to Tampa, which is the worst win percentage of any NFL franchise in NFL history. Couldn't make the playoffs before he got there. He gets there, they win Super Bowl. Like, I think certain guys, yes. Now, I think a lot of guys, because they're not the Tom Bradys of the world, they're a product of their circumstances. Matthew Stafford's a perfect example of that, right? Like a guy who, talented guy, good player, very good player, but like he needed to be surrounded by an infrastructure to win a lot of games. Like Peyton Manning, you could have put him on the Houston Texans, he would have won a ton of games. So I just think it depends on who it is.
You're talking about winning is attributed to a real franchise quarterback, in other words.
Yes. If you're the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's,
the difference
Mahomes of the world, the Elways, you're going to win. I don't care where you go. You're just so gifted. You're so great. You're going to win. Then you get into like, look, I'll give an example of a guy I think is a very good quarterback, but I don't think he's on that level. Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott to me is a very good player. If you put Dak Prescott on the Lions, they're winning 7 games. Like they're not. He needs more than that around him. But if he has that around him, he can win a Super Bowl. So I think it depends. Like Derek Carr is another example the other way. Derek Carr has been saddled with garbage most of his career. If Derek Carr had been, let's say, on the other side of the bay, and he played for the 49ers his whole career with Kyle Shanahan.
Or the Rams last year.
He could win a Super Bowl. I think a lot of guys are products of like their environment and their infrastructure. And then there are the 5 or 6 guys who are like, look, man, put them on any team. And as long as they have any semblance of help around them, they're going to win a bunch of games.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. And I know it hasn't been proven in a way yet, but I kind of think the guy we have is that kind of guy because he's won at every level and he's 21-10 and he has not had the best situation for 2 out of the 3 years. He's only had a really good situation for 10 games this year because he missed 2 other ones. So 3. Right. Or 2.5. So, for me, I like this guy, but I just look at it and I say, for me, when you have the franchise quarterback, you have to attribute winning to that guy because you just look at life before or after when somebody has a franchise quarterback and everything changes, dude.
Yeah.
Just everything changes when you have that guy. And
absolutely.
So it's just
we always talk on this show. I feel like we talk a lot about him. It's Justin Herbert, right? Like that. He seems to come up a lot. Obviously, he was drafted right after Tua, so he's going to come up a lot in Miami. Like I'm actually a little bit starting to come over to your side of the fence on this one. Like Herbert is incredibly talented. I don't think anybody would deny that. I mean, physically,
100 times more talented than Tua. 100.
Physically, no question. I mean,
not even close.
He's more talented, I would say, than any quarterback in football outside of maybe Allen and Mahomes, and he's as talented as those guys physically.
Because he's more like Allen. Both Allen and him are more physically talented than Mahomes because of their size. That's the only reason. Right. Outside of that, Mahomes has everything else those guys have, and maybe even better in some of those other areas. But yeah, the physical stature of them. But here's what I always talk about with Herbert. Here's what I also added with Herbert. Do you see Herbert play like Josh Allen? Like run like Josh Allen?
No,
like,
he's not as noble.
Play with that desperation, like sell your body out like Josh Allen. I'm not saying it's smart, but right. I see the puny dude we have here, and he put a shoulder into a dude last year. Like, yo, what the hell are you doing, bro? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? That kind of stuff. So that guy's fearless. I'm just wondering, does Justin Herbert kind of play a big finesse game in a way?
I mean, I think, look, at some point, like I'm not always the quarterback wins guy, kind of like I just laid out, but at some point you got to win some games, man. Like you just have, like, I can't sit here and then I didn't. In fact, in my quarterback rankings, I kind of killed him for this. Like, you can't score 20 points against the Raiders in a game you got to have. You just can't. You got to pick 6 in that game. You scored 13 points on offense. Yep. I mean, the Raiders are atrocious defensively. Atrocious. Like, and I don't look, I get it. The people are like, well, he got sacked, but something. I don't care. Like, go out and score some points.
He has weapons, dude. It's not like he lacks weapons.
I mean, come on. Got weapons. You got Eckler, you got Allen. I know Williams was out. All right, fine. DeAndre Carter's halfway decent. You got tight ends. Like, score.
No. The other kid has played super well. What's his name?
Carter? DeAndre Carter?
Is it Carter or is it no? What's the other kid?
Josh Palmer?
Okay. That kid, he's played well too, actually.
You've got to win that game.
They've had some guys there fill in that have done a nice job. Plus, you have Keenan, and you still have your running back, bro.
I mean, and look, at some point too, like you just got to win these games. Like, it took a miracle for them to beat the Cardinals. I mean, I will say, and I try to be fair. I also blame a lot of it with the Chargers on the fact I think they are horrifically coached, and I think defensively they're a sieve. So Herbert's always put in these positions where they have no offensive scheme, and defensively the team is a wreck. That being said, sometimes you have to, if you're the great quarterback, if you're the great upper tier, all pro level player, you overcome it. Like, you just overcome it. Look, I watched Mahomes' rookie, well, not rookie year, first year starter. They couldn't stop a nosebleed the entire year. And they're a coin flip from the Super Bowl. Like, that team could not stop anybody. Now, granted, much better coach, great weapons. Like, I understand Mahomes had some more advantages than Herbert. But at some point, like, if the Chargers don't make the playoffs this year, which I don't think they're going to, if they don't make the playoffs this season, that conversation's got to start a little bit around Herbert. Like, okay, are you going to give him $55 million a year? You probably are, and I think you should, because he's great. He's a great talent. And I think it's more about the coaching and the defense. But it is fair to look at this and go, all right, look at his contemporaries. Burrow's gotten a Super Bowl. Mahomes has gotten to 2 and he's won one. Allen has not gotten to a Super Bowl yet, but he has gotten to the playoffs each of the last handful of years, and he's gotten to the AFC title game. Tua's about to go to the playoffs, one would imagine. Like, you got to get to the playoffs. I mean, you've got to get in the playoffs and do something at some juncture here.
By the way, just for, shits and giggles here, Tua's 21-10. Herbert's 21-23.
Yeah. I mean, at some point it matters if you win games. Like Lamar's another guy I didn't mention.
And he's had the better talent overall for 3 years.
Yes.
Does Tua have an advantage this year? Yes. But he had the clear advantage for 2 years in talent. And he still has an advantage in the running game, by the way. Still has an advantage in the running game. Miami has the advantage in the passing game with the receivers and the coaching, because Mike McDaniel runs circles around those guys. I mean, it's not even close. That I will give it, but he still has enough, he has more than what Tua had the first 2 years. Let's put it that way.
They should not be like I've always pushed back on them being a Super Bowl team, even in the offseason when people were picking them to go to the Super Bowl. Like, to me, like you got to do something before I can pick you to go to a Super Bowl.
All right, I'm with you.
They should be a playoff team. Like, the Jets are not more talented than the Chargers. Even with the injuries. Come on now. I mean, you can't win 10 games, and the AFC West stinks. Denver's awful. The Raiders are. Look, I think the Raiders are a touch better than their record, but they're mediocre. I mean, they're a mediocre team.
Yeah.
The Chiefs, okay, yes, are the Chiefs. Fine and fair enough. The Chargers also played a third-place schedule this year. Like, the Chargers got the Falcons. The Chargers got to play the AFC South. You can't get to the playoffs in that? You can't do that? At some point, and to me also, if they're not going to fire Stanley after the season, which I don't think they will, though it's not impossible. If they don't fire him, then you're saying that you think the coach is good enough. Like, if you're not firing him, you're saying we believe in Brendan Staley as head coach. Now, I don't believe in him at all. I think he's a terrible head coach. But if you're going to keep him, then you're saying you believe in him. Right. So then it's not him. Then he's not the problem. So what is it? I mean, obviously the defense is a disaster again, which, by the way, Brendan Staley's a defensive head coach. But if it's not Staley, then it's either defense or it's Herbert's not getting it done in big spots. I mean, what is it? You had too many games on his racket that end up in losses.
Right.
You got to turn some of those into wins, man. You got to find a way to do it.
All right. Let's get into an interesting conversation that you can give the Dolphin Nation a lot of information.
Sure.
They just signed Eric Fisher 2 days ago, a guy that spent a lot of time in Kansas City. I know he retired. I know he had some injuries, and I don't know. Talk to us a little bit about the Eric Fisher that finished his career at the back end of Kansas City, what you saw from him, and what Miami could possibly be getting.
So Eric Fisher, I would describe him, excuse me, as a consummate professional. He came in as a rookie, first overall pick. He played 1 year at right tackle before he switched to left tackle. Actually, he played right tackle because Brandon Albert was the left tackle before he came to Miami. Early in his career, he was a little bit inconsistent, but as the years went on, he got better and better. He became a really good left tackle for them. Like, unequivocally, they would not have won the Super Bowl if he wasn't on the team. He was very good. People always remember the Super Bowl where Bosa gave him issues. Well, he's Bosa. Like, he gives everybody issues. Fisher was very good. Fisher and Schwartz were by far, Mitch Schwartz were by far the two pillars of that offensive line. The interior of those in the Super Bowl year was not good. I think the thing with Fisher was, unfortunately, he tore his Achilles in their 2020 AFC Championship game. He got cut after that. I think they would have cut him anyway. Financially, they were just in a bind. He went to the Colts. I don't believe, just watching him play, he was 100% healthy. He never looked right. The question for me with Miami is he healthy? If he's healthy, he can play. Right. If he's healthy, he's a good look. The kind of guy he is, he's good in the run game. He's not overpowering, but he's solid in it. He's good technically. In the pass game, he's good athletically. Like, to me, he will deal with this speed guy a little bit better than he'll deal with the power guy. Power guy was always able to get into his chest a little bit. Speed guy, he could always. Now, you move him to right tackle, maybe it changes a little bit. But a left tackle, that's how he played. I would say overall, though, Eric Fisher was a really good player for the Chiefs for a long time. And if he's healthy, I think he's definitely a plus signing for Miami. In fact, a lot of people in Kansas City wanted the Chiefs to sign him to replace their current right tackle. So,
Wow.
I think he's a quality signing if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, well, then it is what it is. But if he's healthy, good help him.
The only thing I guess the ray of hope that I'm looking at here is he's been off all this time. He's had plenty of time to heal, maybe mentally get in a better place, because injury after injury can really just take a toll on you as a player. And I know he's dealt with all kinds of injuries. And so, one guy goes to me, well, no, you look at how many games missed. And I go, yeah, you're looking at his games played, but they don't tell you how many he ends up finishing, that he had to leave games, and all that kind of stuff, because that happens to a lot of players, and he's had to deal with a lot of that. But if he's in a situation where now he's rested, hopefully he's healthy. I would imagine he's somewhat healthy. He must have passed a physical, but you're not playing him every week. And it's a spot start for Teron Armstead, who's out a week. It's a spot start for Brandon Shell, who might be out on the right. And you also are now telling us they not only added a tackle, they also added a swing tackle too. So you're talking about a guy that could fill in at right tackle, could fill in at left tackle, because he is well versed on both ends of it. So that to me is the bright side of it, that if he's just a backup and you're not putting the burden on his body of pounding every week, you might have actually a pretty decent option there as a rotational backup guy.
Yeah, I think that's what he should be at this point. Again, before the shame of it really was, here, I'll give you a hot take. If he didn't tear his Achilles in the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs would have won 2 straight Super Bowls. But I mean, because they had to, not that anybody in Miami cares about that, but when he went down, they had to shuffle their entire offensive line. Like, they literally had to move all 5 guys. It was a train wreck. But he's a good football player. In fact, at times, he's a really good football player. Now, again, he's going to be 32 here in a few weeks. He was hurt after the 2020 season. He had the Achilles. He came back. He never looked right in Indy. Like, at this point, what does he have left? I don't know. I mean, that's the question. That's also why, if you're in Miami, you're taking a flyer on him. It's not like you're giving some huge investment. But he was always a professional. And I will say, outside, he missed half of the season when they won the Super Bowl. He missed half that year. I forget what the injury was, actually. I want to say it was his back, but I could be wrong with that. Other than that, he was pretty durable. He played through a lot of stuff. Like, there were a lot of times you'd be like, I don't know if he's going to be able to play this week, and he'd play. He'd be out there.
Very Teron Armstead-like is what you're saying.
I'll also tell you this. He will help them just being in the room in the playoffs. He played a lot of big games in his career, and he was really good in a lot of them. Like, that was a guy who was the first overall pick, had a lot of pressure on him. Early on, he struggled. A lot of people said he was a bust. Ended up playing really well, became somebody who was really important to them. I would not be shocked at all if at some point in his career he's honored later in Kansas City. And then, really ended up being a huge part of the reason they won the Super Bowl. Like I said, he and Mitch Schwartz were nails for them, and they had to be. So I think, he'll help those younger guys in Miami too, who have never been to a playoff game. Guys like him, Tyreek Hill, who have been there, who have done it. Teron Armstead's obviously been there. Jeff Wilson's been in a playoff game. Like, that helps. That'll help them come December, January, so on and so forth.
I bet Tyreek had a word or two and said, no, man, bring him over here or something. Must have been, right? I mean,
I'm sure he did. I mean, he was a huge part of that Super Bowl team. He was you're protecting Patrick Mahomes' blind side. How many guys are more important in the NFL than that guy?
Right. Yeah. I like the fact that he can also swing. So I think that that's pretty cool. Your thoughts on John Robinson's firing? I was just talking to Ian Rappaport earlier on the show about this, and he talked a little bit about how the A.J. Brown performance this past week kind of rubbed it in their noses and all that. And then, I read an article where his failures in the first round, but the kid this year looks pretty good, actually. So I don't know, but I was talking with Ian about this. I actually commended John Robinson on the A.J. Brown trade. Why? because by you drafting Malik, you're now telling me that Tannehill is here for one more year. Malik will take over next year in his second year because you're not wasting a first rounder on a guy and you're not going to play. You got to start playing him and to figure it out. You gave him his year to sit down and all that. So why would you pay AJ Brown all that money to sit there and wait for a couple of years for a quarterback to develop that you're not even sure? You're kind of moving on. So now you draft a young receiver so he can grow up with Malik. That makes a lot of sense. You don't have to pay this kid for 4 years. You don't have to pay Malik for 5. So now you got time to figure everything out, and you're developing a number 1 wide receiver along with your quarterback. I think it made a lot of sense. And then I start to think about it, and I asked him, was this a power struggle? Did Vrabel want more power? And he says that Vrabel now will have more influence on who the next general manager is.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, John Robinson built pretty damn good teams. You can nitpick for a lot of people that might miss on your first rounder, but dude, did he find a stud in the second? Did he find a stud in the third? Did he find some fifth rounders, seventh rounders? Did he find a street free agent? Did he make a good move in a trade? Did he build the team anyway, regardless, even if he failed? And they did, and he did constantly. So I'm just wondering, how do you look at that John Robinson signing? Because it just felt like politics to me. And that's exactly what it seems like with the power struggle of the coach, who has proven himself, by the way. He wants more power.
To me, there's a lot more to that firing than A.J. Brown having a good game. I mean, if you're firing somebody off A.J. Brown having a good game, then you're not a serious organization. Like, you either believe in the move or you don't. And if you didn't believe in the move, you should have fired him in April. I mean, I like that to me. The idea that, he had a good game against us, so we're firing John Robinson is insane. I mean, that's nonsense. Look, when you have a record like Robinson has, they won 5 games in 2 years before John Robinson got there. 5 games. They stunk to high heaven. I'll tell you right now, you know who's going to have another job soon? John Robinson. That's who's going to have another job soon. Okay?
Yeah.
He is not going to be unemployed for very long. Now, the second I saw it, my first thought was, well, there's got to be something going on in the building. Because that doesn't happen. They're about to win the division. When's the last time a general manager got fired in the middle of a season when the team is rolling toward another division title? Right? I mean, you don't see guys get
even
fired.
Trading AJ Brown, by the way. You're still going to win the division.
Of course. Like, look, there's always a reason. Like, you don't see popular GMs, popular coaches just fired in the middle of a year. That doesn't happen. It might have been a little bit of a power struggle with Vrabel. It might also be, look, you know what? They've had some drama recently, and this part I don't know. It's just speculation, but like they had a coach who recently got in trouble with the law after they had won a game and gotten back off the plane. Now, how much of that's on John Robinson, I don't know, but it adds to the dysfunction in the building. Is what I'm.
By the way, did John Robinson hire Vrabel?
Yes, believe he did. Yeah.
Holy shit.
So, I mean, I think it's one of these things where it's like, well, if you want to say he didn't get the quarterback right, okay, well, Tannehill's better than Mariota. So, I mean, it's still – look, my argument would be they got to the AFC Championship game a couple of years ago. They then followed that up by winning the division. I know they lost in the first round. I get it. And then last year, won the division again and were the 1 seed in an AFC that is loaded. And this season, I think it's probably safe to say they're probably going to be the number 4 seed. They're going to win the division again. Could win a playoff game. If I'm John Robinson,
they're only missing the QB, dude.
That's it. The rest of that team's really, really good. If I'm John Robinson, I am going to any interview I want to go to, and I'm pointing to the Titans and saying, I can do that and win all these games without a quarterback. Like, give me an option. Like, if I'm him, I'll tell you right now, and I don't know what's going to happen. If I were the Houston Texans, I'd call him up in a heartbeat and be like, hey, man, we're going to have the number 1 overall pick. You get a quarterback, and you have a ton of cap space, and you know the division. Come on down. You build this team from the ground up. Say whatever you want about John Robinson. They brought in a lot of good players in his tenure. A lot of them. In the draft, in free agency. And how many brutal contracts did he sign? How many really bad contracts did he sign? None, right? I mean, so if I'm a team that needs a GM, he's at the top of the list.
Yeah, I thought he did a fantastic job there, and to me it's kind of it hit me like, okay, Vrabel wants power.
There's something
That's
going
really
on
what
there.
it hit me. And listen, you know what? Vrabel's gotten to the point where he's earned it. You know, I got pissed at the Dolphins for giving Gase power personnel, and then they screwed up in giving Flo power personnel that he could deny things. And the luckily for them, he wanted Jordan Love, and they denied that, and they went with Tua. That was the good thing, at least. But my point is, I don't mind giving a coach the power personnel once you've earned it. That, hey, you've proven that you're a damn good coach year in and year out, and okay, well, that's fine. But man, you have the combination of a really good GM and a really good coach. I don't know if I want to let that go if I'm Tennessee. And you nailed it, dude. If you're the Texans, that's the perfect guy to hire if you're the Texans, to kind of clean the house, turn this thing around. And I know they got Caserio there, but
yeah, because that's gone great. I would bring him in yesterday if I were the Houston Texans. He's been in your division. He's proven he can build a winner from nothing, because they were atrocious when he showed up.
Yep.
And the one thing that, look, not only eluded him, but has eluded plenty of GMs over their careers, finding that quarterback. You get the number 1 overall pick. You go take your guy. Go take Stroud. Go take Young. Go take whoever you want. Like, if that job, by the way, you'd have people lining up out the door. Okay, number 1 overall pick, all those picks from the Browns for years to come, cap space like crazy, and oh, by the way, there's no income tax in Texas, no state income tax, so not a bad deal. Okay, as someone who lives in a state with income tax, okay, I would enjoy no income tax. So I'm sure there are plenty of people.
When you're moving to Florida, bro, come on down.
I know.
We're a lot warmer. I don't know if you know that, but we're a little warmer than there in Kansas City. I just want you to know.
Listen, I just finished telling a buddy of mine this morning. I was talking to him. He said, "What's your favorite NFL city you've ever been to?" I said, "Miami." It's not even close. Miami is easily the favorite. I could eat a Joe Stone crab every night for the rest of my life. So easily, not even a contest. My favorite place to go. So believe me, I'm first flight. I'd love to be there.
I got to ask you one more before I let you go. Baker Mayfield getting claimed by the Rams. Your thoughts on that?
Short-term fix would be my answer to that. I think that is going to be hey, why don't you start 3 games for us instead of watching John Wolford and Bryce Perkins? And then I think at the end of the year, it's going to be, hey, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Have a nice day. I think it's going to be a month of service in Los Angeles, and then he will hit free agency. And I got to tell you, he's not – I would be floored if he's starting somewhere next year. Floored. That's over. He's going to have to go somewhere and humble himself and be a backup and wait for an opportunity if it ever comes. I don't know. I don't know. We talked about this on Stack in the Box yesterday. And my question to my co-host was over under 10 more career starts in the NFL. In fact, what do you have? Under. So that's what I said. I don't think he's starting 10 more games.
Under. The baggage is also there too. And you just the problem is you're afraid that if you bring him in, he starts complaining like a bitch that he's not playing or this and that. And it's and then here's the look, dude. You know what I love is when I'm talking to people that have been in locker rooms and have dealt with this kind of shit.
Yep.
He can be a distraction without even trying to be a distraction.
No doubt.
Your starting quarterback is not playing that well. But you see Baker scrolling in the locker room and you say, "Hey Baker, how you doing? What's it like hanging in there? Well, I'm just waiting for my chance.
Yeah.
I just keep working hard, waiting for my chance." Now the writer grabs it.
Yeah.
Baker didn't say anything.
Right.
But this guy's struggling. But hey, we just talked to Baker. He's waiting for his chance.
It's hard.
Baker didn't mean anything by it. But all of a sudden, that can be turned in. And you have to be very careful. It's like the Tim Tebow effect. It's a different kind of polarization. But when you bring them into the locker room, dude, if you're not like the Jets, they had him on the bench, bro, and they kept asking him every week, Rex, are you going to play him? Are you going to play him? And it just becomes a distraction.
It does.
And, they had to keep him out of the locker room while the media was there because they didn't want that distraction. And whether you like it or not, Baker is that. Now, is he there in the Rams? No, because that's a strong quarterback room because it's Stafford's job.
And they're done anyway.
Yeah.
I think the truth of it is you want your backup quarterback to be capable, for sure. But you want a guy who's a humble guy. That's a hard job. You got to prepare every single week. But you've got to prepare to play. But you've also got to be a guy who's willing to help out the guy in front of you, who's a consummate team dude. And also, as you point out, and you're like, you've got to be that kind of a personality. The Chase Daniels of the world, the Tyrod Taylors of the world. A guy who can come in and play if need be, but is not going to threaten the starter in front of him. That kind of a guy. I think right now, Teddy Bridgewater is a perfect example of that in Miami. Teddy Bridgewater is a good quality backup. He's a really good backup. You don't hear a word out of Teddy Bridgewater. Comes in, does his job. Hell, a couple of years ago, ironically,
provides leadership, right? Which is
ironically
what that position requires is leadership.
Is
what it requires.
Against Baker in a playoff game a couple of years ago, to draw on my own mental experience of this, Mahomes got hurt in a playoff game against them. And the Chiefs brought in Chad Henne. And Chad Henne's been the backup Mahomes' his entire career. And there's a reason for it. He's prepared every week. He knows the offense. And you know what? I'll never forget that. He came into the game. They had a 4th and 1 at the 50-yard line with less than 2 minutes left. And everybody in the world thinks they're going to punt the ball because they have Chad Henne. They went for it. And they let him roll out and throw a pass to Tyreek Hill. They were comfortable with him. They were like, he's going to do it. He did it. They win the game. My point is, you're never sitting there if Mahomes has 2 bad weeks going, I don't know, guys, Chad Henne. Chad Henne is the backup quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater is the backup quarterback. Tyrod, Chase Daniel. Is Baker Mayfield that guy? I would be very uneasy as a GM thinking he's going to be that guy. I'd be very uneasy about it. So I think it's going to be a rough go for him.
Yeah, I'm with you there. All right, buddy. Tell them about Stacking the Box, my friend.
Check it out every Tuesday at noon Eastern, 11 Central, live. It is on YouTube. You can also check it out anywhere you find your podcast. Please subscribe, check it out. And by the way, I see some of you guys in there when I do the show, so I appreciate that for coming over. Of course, stay at the Big O show first, then come over, check it out. But
that's right. There's love for all. There's love for all.
But subscribe, check it out. I really appreciate everybody doing so. We cover the whole league, and I have my column that goes up on Monday morning over at fanside.com that also covers the whole league. So thank you very much, everybody.
I had a buddy of mine on a couple months ago, and he goes, "Hey, can I promote the podcast?" I go, "Yeah, dude. Why not?"
Of course.
I was, "Oh no," because sometimes and I go, "No, dude. This is kind of the idea. It's it's platforms to promote other platforms. We help each other. We lift each other. That's kind of the idea. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those deals. So yeah, man.
You guys have a big game this Sunday. Chargers. Sunday night football.
Must win. It's
an important game.
Unfortunately, because Tua had a shit day, and I don't blame anybody else but Tua in that game.
He struggled.
There were open guys, dude. There were open guys all over, and it was something we've never seen from him, that he was so inaccurate. But as I was telling somebody before, like I was telling Ian Rappaport before, I watched Marino get benched. A couple times. Not once, several times. When he just didn't have it, and Shula said, "Relax. Hey, Don Strock.
Yep.
Get in there." Don Strock wasn't ever going to cause any problems, but he was always going to be there for you.
One of the great backups ever. Really, in a lot of ways. Like that guy, good old Woodstock, that one in 82. But listen, you know what? It is. Yeah. It's a big game for Miami. Miami wins this game. You set up, no matter what Buffalo does, you set up a divisional showdown for the lead in the East. And I think, frankly, whoever wins that game is probably win the division at that point.
I agree.
I don't think the Dolphins will lose again after Buffalo. If they beat Buffalo, I don't think they'll lose. The Chargers, I'll tell you one thing right now. Someone watches every snap of the Chargers. In that game, don't be afraid to go after them aggressively. I agree. Go after them. Blitz them. Because the Chargers, they don't have a lot of team speed on offense. They don't want to get down the field anyway. Go after them. Like, the worst thing to do against the Chargers is to sit back. So I'm curious to see what the Dolphins do in this game.
Oh, no, Boyer will attack. I think Boyer's going to attack, and I think you can also force Herbert into mistakes. So that's
it's not a great line, and it's the kind of team that if you sit back and you give Herbert 3 seconds to throw the ball, he's going to find somebody. He's too talented.
Yeah. He's got a gifted arm, bro.
Get in man coverage and blitz. And I think that is a good recipe for Miami because they're going to score points. The Chargers can't stop anybody.
When I watch his games, I may not watch every play like you do. Dude, he's not very good at anticipatory throws, right? He really relies mostly on his big-ass arm, right?
Well, look, he's definitely the kind of guy who, like, he can gun it in there. I mean, I know he does it all the time. What I would say is if you get pressure, he's mobile in a way, but he's not going to, like, run for yardage. So you can blow a play up. Like, he's good at avoiding sacks because he's big and he's strong and he can get – but he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not going to take off and run for 25 yards. So if I'm the Dolphins, I blitz. I'd play man-on-man coverage with that secondary. I would threaten them and say, look, I don't know if Mike Williams is playing this week or not. Keenan Allen will. I'd be like, and if Williams doesn't play, I would double Allen on every third down and say, beat me anywhere else. Eckler has 1 million receptions, but he goes for like 5 yards of reception. So I picked the Dolphins to win this game. I think they will win this game. But
and by the way, the Dolphins have Darth Cater for Cater Kohu. Division 2, huh? There we go.
Very nice.
There we go. I just got my my Darth Cater poster here in the studio. How about that? An effing Division 2 undrafted player.
Yep.
Is like one of the better rookies out of the draft. Is that crazy or what?
Scouting, coaching, find the right role for a guy. It's key, no matter where he's from.
All right, follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame as always, and subscribe to Stack in the Box, or I will come after you.
Thank you.
Much love. We'll catch you next week, my friend. Appreciate you.
Take it easy, brother.
You got it. The great Matt Verderame. We step out of the huddle.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.